So today I'm going to be talking about the apiary cure and what we're doing at Misión del Paso with the bees. So um, there are some problems that we are addressing with this cure, and what cure stands for is a course-based undergraduate research experience. So what that means is that you can participate in undergraduate research while taking a regular course. It doesn't have to be a special course, it's just a regular one. And here at Mission, we offer this cure in our biology 1107 courses and also in the biology 2421 courses. So first, we're tackling the problem of understanding what colony collapse syndrome is. So colony collapse syndrome is a phenomenon that kind of was identified in the 90s because honeybee hives were just dying, like for no reason, and no one understood why. And a lot of research went into that, and a few things were identified. So here we see Microsporidia. This is a tiny version of a fungus. Like we didn't know this existed until we investigated it as a cause of colony collapse syndrome. Also varroa mites. So varroa mites are these tiny mites that come from Japan, and they attach themselves to bees and like suck their blood out. Well, their bee version of blood. They suck that out, and it kills the bees, and it can cause a whole hive to collapse. And then there's viruses that the mites transmit on top of that. So like if it were not bad enough that they were sucking like nutrients and stuff out of the bees, then they bring a virus on top of that, right? And the other thing is, because my background is microbiology, we're also investigating the microorganisms that are in the bee yard and using that to help us to tackle the second problem, which is the post-antibiotic era. So some things that might have contributed to the post-antibiotic era are like when you overuse antibiotics, you take them maybe to clear up your face, right? But that's considered an overuse. Misuse, when you are taking an antibiotic but you don't need to. And overprescription. It is standard of care in this country that when you have certain symptoms to prescribe an antibiotic, but you might have a viral infection and antibiotics don't work against those. So like why? Why are we being prescribed antibiotics when we don't need them, right? But all of this has combined to cause antibiotic resistance in bacteria. And so we're using the Tiny Earth research model to try to find new bacteria that make new antibiotics in the soil around the bee yard, and also investigating the different antimicrobial properties of the honeybees themselves. Okay, so let's get into, like, this is the Tiny Earth research model. So in my class, you're able to start over here in module 1, where we go outside and we collect dirt from the garden and from the bee area. And then we culture or grow the bacteria, and we isolate them, and then we test them to see, do they make antibiotics? And if they do, then we can go on and try to identify, is this a bacteria that we know, or did we discover a new bacteria? And did we potentially discover a new antibiotic? And this is something that is being done in schools across the country, even internationally. So with a ton of undergraduate power, we're able to find like new things all the time. So that's one of the arms of the research. Another thing that we obviously, that's like, this is why we're here, right? Is the beekeeping. So you also have the opportunity to learn about bee biology and beekeeping through these courses. I'm going to just talk about like how to start an apiary, a little introduction on bee biology, like you would probably get in one of my classes. And then I'll talk about the opportunities that are available to the students. So when you start an apiary is like also a bee yard. It's just where you keep the bees. You have a lot of options on how to set up a bee yard. What I chose for our campus is the Langstroth hive, because if it works, don't try to like renovate, right? So this was developed in the 1890s, and it's just this box right here. And inside, you have 8 to 10 movable frames, and they are spaced like a quarter or a 3/8 inch apart. And this is called bee space because bees will make comb anywhere they fit. So if you have like huge gaps inside of the hive, they will make comb to fit that huge gap, like anywhere they will make comb. So in order to kind of domesticate the bee and to have it make honey into small spaces, they developed this hive to do like easy harvesting, easy comb growth. So here, these are my first two hives that I had in there. So this is Resistance is Futile when I first got her. I name all my hives after sci-fi things. So this is a Star Trek reference. And then this one is the Borg, another Star Trek reference. Okay, so they're queens. This queen for Resistance is Scully from like X-Files. And then this one was Mulder from X-Files as well. Um, all right. But you can see how I've grown, right? My apiary has grown since last year, since I first built it. So a few things happened just to give you guys a little bit of an update. So Resistance is Futile was doing really good. They survived the winter and they grew from their first box to now having two brood boxes. And then this is a honey super on the top. Unfortunately, I lost the Borg over the winter, but I did get um, two new bee boxes, and I will show you how like they come. Like they come in the mail. It's really cool. Um, and so this hive right here, this is called a New Hope. So that's Star Wars, right? And then this hive here is called Battlestar Galactica. And a New Hope's queen is Leia, of course. And then Battlestar Galactica's queen is Starbuck. A few things about the bee yard. It's an enclosed space, but bees are not going to stay in here. That's like a misconception that some people have. They don't stay in here. They fly up and out over your head, which is what makes it kind of safe to keep them on campus. People often don't even know they're there because they're flying over you, right? Over 6 feet tall. This is actually like, I think, 8 feet. So you'll never know they're there. And then keeping bees in the desert is hard. It's very hot. So I have like a nice screen put in. It helps keep them from going into the higher than 100 temperatures. And I learned that I put in this like amazing pond that refreshes and to give them water. They don't like that. They like their dog dish, like in the corner. And they like algae in their dog dish. They will not drink the water without algae in it. Bees are just there's something else sometimes. Okay, but yeah, I have these three hives, and in taking care of them, I started off with just one box for each, and these guys are growing so strong that they have already have a honey super. So I'm expecting to have quite a lot of honey by the end of the spring into the summer. Okay, this is how they come. They come in a little box like this. So this is a package. And in a package, you have about 5,000 bees. And then in there, there's also this little tiny box with a queen cage. So they put a queen bee in here with like some attendants. So some worker bees that like groom her and help give her food. And then they put a little like sugar cap. So this is a sugar cap right here. So when the bees come, you take out the cork from this side, and the worker bees will chew their way out of the sugar cap, and that they release the queen once you've installed her into your hive. To install these guys, you open it up and then you just like pour them in. You pour them into the top of the box. And then within a week, they should start like drawing comb. Okay, so here I have like this is the package that they came in, and here they are like when I had them first set up. I've learned some things since then. Now I have them on individual hive stands, right? There are a few different ways that you can get bees. So you could do what I did and get a package in the mail. It's hit or miss, but it is kind of a little bit the cheaper option because the bees they'll get shipped to you, right? But if they get stuck in the mail system, they could die. This was a very dramatic like thing for me, so I actually had to find someone to open the Socorro like mail center for me to get my bees out because I knew if I left them till Monday, they would die. And luckily, I was able to chase a mailman, and and they got delivered, and I received them. Another way that you can get bees that is maybe not as dramatic is that you can purchase something called a nuke. Okay, and that's what this is right here. So this plastic box, what has been done here is that they have like a few frames, usually 5 frames, and they already have like comb on them. So you already have the little baby bees, you have honey on the side, and you have sometimes you'll have a queen in here, in a queen cage, just like I showed you with the in the previous slide. So there's advantages to this. The advantages are that you know that these guys are already successfully drawing comb. The queen is already laying eggs, and then all of these guys are related, and they're doing well. So it's a way of kind of jump starting a hive, growing a hive quickly. These are more expensive, and they are also harder to come by. So in El Paso, there's really no bee farms where they will sell you a nuke. Like we do have farms, like there's the great honey farm in Fabens, the Ceballos, right? They're great local honey source, but they will not sell you bees, right? Not everyone is going to be open to selling bees. These bees actually come from New Mexico. That is kind of the closest to El Paso that you can get bees from. So it is harder to find a nuke, but it's usually like the recommended way. I've done both, and I have been pretty successful with packages, so I'm staying with that method for now. The dream, the hope is that we'll be able to have such successful hives that we could maybe start providing nukes to the community. But that's, a few years out still. And how do the bees like even know where to go? They are controlled by the queen. They sense her pheromones, and they are going to, if the queen is in the hive, they know that's their house. They know that's where they need to live. So it's all controlled by pheromones. A kind of fun fact about bees is that they are like us, they need to go to sleep. So when the sun hits them, they come out and they look for their flowers, and they get the nectar and the pollen. And then and their eyes are so sophisticated that they can keep track of how far they've traveled based on shadows, based on like color markings of flowers. And then they will make their way back to the hive for the nighttime and they go to sleep, which is just like so cute. I don't know. Just imagine bees in little pajamas. Not really. Okay. Another really important thing about keeping bees is that if you live in a desert, you usually have to feed them. So I supplement my bees' diet with sugar syrup and pollen patties. So the sugar syrup, I make it, and I make it every week. I make 3 gallons of sugar syrup. I just buy white sugar from the store and mix that with water in a 1-to-1 solution. And I pour it into a little container that they have in the side of their hive. Another thing is you need to get rid of those mites. Like those mites, the bees pick them up when they go out into their harvesting, like they go and visit flowers and things. So they're going to go out, they're going to catch mites, and they can bring them back to the hive, and it'll cause the hive to die, to collapse, right? So you need to be checking and treating for varroa at certain times of the year. So I did an April treatment. We're going into summer where there's going to be tons and tons of honey made. So this is called honey flow season. And then around August is when I'm going to treat for them again. And then they get another treatment as we go into winter, and then you close them for winter. And I'll show you what that looks like how you close up a beehive for winter. Okay. So every like week or 10 days or so, I do a hive inspection. And so and that's only because I have young hives. Like if I were had more established hives, I wouldn't need to check them so often. But what I do is I check, is there evidence of queen? And so you can see right here, there's so many bees on there, right? It's just full of bees. But you either have to find the queen or you find evidence of queen. So when you're finding evidence, you're looking for eggs, larva, or pupa. And I have some slides to show you what those look like. And then you also want to be checking, like, are there too many bees here? Because if all these like frames get full, then the bees are going to leave. They're going to swarm. They need more space. Like, they get upset with you. So you have to add another box or a super onto that to give them more room to grow, right? So it's just like taking care of, any pet. Once they get too big for a space, you need to give them a bigger space. All right, so here are the kinds of bees that you're going to find in a hive. Most of the bees in a hive are going to be your worker bee. So that's this guy right here. And worker bees are female. They have these kind of angled eyes. So these kind of ovoid eyes. And then they're fuzzy. And they're also like kind of small. And they're very elegant. Once you see them, like, they're like small, dainty, very cute. And they are the bees that can sting. They have different jobs inside of the hive. So some of them are nurses, like they take care of the baby bees. Some of them are going to forage. Some of them are going to be like undertakers. Like, if bees die, they push them out of the hive, right? Some of them defend the hive. They have just all kinds of jobs, right? And it depends also on their age, what kind of job they have. The other kind of bee that is going to be inside of a hive is going to be the drone. And these are male bees. And you could tell because they're big, right? They're huge. And then they got these huge eyes. You should not have a ton of drones. If you have a ton of drones, that means you don't have workers, and that's a problem. There's some genetic differences between the worker bee and the drone. So worker bees, being female, right? They are useful bees. Drones, being male in the hive, they don't really do anything. They just eat. Um, and then in the spring, they mate with female, like a queen, right? And then as soon as they mate with a female queen, they die. So yeah, like, we have way too many of these um, in a hive, right? And then in the winter, before I before they go into kind of their winter mode, they will kill all the males, or just kick them out of the hive so that they like die in the cold, because they don't want to feed them, right? They only want to keep the bees that work and have a good job, like a job, and serve the hive. So it's very brutal being a bee. And then we've got here the queen, right? She is la mera mera, right? So she's going to be the one who is in charge of laying eggs. And because of that, she's very long. So she's very long and elegant. She has this very long, um, what is this? So this long, like, thorax region. So here you can see that in comparison to like the worker bee, she doesn't really have stripes. She's just kind of all brown. And then her wings are very small. She actually cannot fly very far. So when you have a queen bee, the virgin queen will leave the hive, and then she mates with like hundreds of male drones, and she fertilizes the eggs in her thorax. And then she returns to the hive, and she's going to stay there kind of for the rest of her life. So she doesn't really fly out of the hive like the other bees do. When it gets to the end of her life, queen bees can live like 5 years if you're lucky. She's going to start losing weight because she's running out of eggs. And she could leave the hive, and maybe take a few bees with her, or she could maybe fly out of the hive, to die. She will lay her replacements before she goes, though. So here are our kinds of bees. Now, this is the evidence of queen that I was talking about. So we've got eggs, larva, and pupa. Bees have a complete metamorphosis cycle. So when you have a complete metamorphosis cycle, that means you have the 3 stages. So these eggs, they're teeny tiny, right? It's this little rice right here, this grain of rice, but much smaller than a grain of rice. And so this is going to be your egg. And this is what the queen lays. And if you find eggs, you know she was there within 3 days because the eggs, it's day 1 to 3 in the metamorphosis cycle. And then they will grow into this larval form. Okay. So the larval form, we see it's like a tiny worm. And so this is going to kind of be that middle section of their metamorphosis. And then the last is going to be pupa. So that's this capped stuff. Okay, this little cap. So they cap it with a thin layer of beeswax. And the last part of the metamorphosis is going to take place. I have a picture on, I'll come back. I have a picture on this slide. So you see you have your egg and then the larvae, right? And then this is what's happening during the pupa. You have it in this little sealed cell. And when the bee is ready, when she's ready, they will eat their way out of the little cap. And then you have the adult bee fully formed coming out of there. And so this process takes about a week, right? The nurse bees, they're going to feed this like little mix. This is called royal jelly. They feed that to the all baby bees for like the first 3 days of their development. But then they're going to switch to just regular like nectar. Queen bees, however, they get royal jelly for longer. And so that's why their metamorphosis cycle takes longer and why they come out bigger in the end. Okay, so let's go back here. All right, so there's different kinds, I think, yeah, different kinds of pupa. So here, this like kind of smooth pupa, that's worker bee. And then this bumpy one is drone because they're so big. They even like pop out. And then the queen bee is this thing. So like this thing that looks like kind of a growth coming off, that's where you would have queen bees. So when I'm out there and looking at my frame, I'm checking, do I have queen cups? Because you don't want like a bunch of queen bees hatching in your hive. It can mean that you need to give them a bigger house, or it could mean that your queen is getting ready to go, right? So you need to take action when you see queen cups. Like they're not something that you necessarily want to see unless you're ready to split the hive. Okay, so here we have like different evidences of queen present. So you pull out a frame and you see this and you're like, okay, pupa, cool. But then you look closer, right? And you're going to see there's larva in this second picture. And then you look closer and you see the little rice, right? So there's the egg. So here I know that my queen was there at least within 3 days, and she's been laying really well because she has different stages of development here in her frame. So my queen is good, even though I couldn't find the queen in this inspection. All right, and here I have a little video. I have a few videos that I'm going to show you guys. So let me switch over to the video page that I have for you. Are you guys doing okay? I hope you are. Okay. So I have this video right here. It's going to be loud because we're going to hear the sounds of the bees. Okay. So what we're watching right here is the bee eating its way out. So this is the baby. That is adorable. Little one, welcome to the world. So right here you can see this is a worker bee based on her eyes. And then that looked rude, right? That looked like it was just stepping, but it was just it was checking on the bee. That's so cute. There she goes. Look at that. So, yeah, once they emerge from the casing, they're ready to go. Like they are ready to be an adult bee and start working. They get no grace period, um, which is, again, it's tough being a bee sometimes. All right, so let me pop back to my presentation. That like buzzing sound, right? Some people actually have been implementing bees in treatment for soldiers who have PTSD. They make these little houses and they put the bees on the side, and in the middle, there's no bees. The person can go in and then just hear the sound of the bees. Once you get over maybe your initial fear of them, it's very peaceful and very calming to be in the presence of bees. I'm always super chill when I'm in there. Okay, so let's do a little practice of looking at a little frame and then seeing, oh, can we see the queen, right? Because when you're a beekeeper, you got to have sharp eyes. So these are all girls, right? These are all our workers. And then here's a queen bee right in the middle. Okay. Now here, it's a little harder, right? But the queen is pretty apparent, like in this frame right here. And then here, this is another queen, and then over here. So these two are the same height, right? This is just like a zoomed in picture of her. This queen was from the Borg, her, and this was their second queen. It was Queequeg. And then this queen, this is Scully. So like I said, you got to have sharp eyes when you're a beekeeper. Like I can tell the difference between my bees. Okay, let's come here. Now, obviously, safety is the number one concern for us at the EPCC Bee Yard. And anyone that I take in there, especially now that I have 3 hives, needs to have some form of protective equipment. So everyone has kind of their own style once you become a beekeeper of what you feel comfortable with. So here, this is what I started off with. This is a full bee suit that I'm wearing that includes like pants, and then I would tuck the pants into boots. Once I started beekeeping in the summer, though, I became much more relaxed, as you can see, and I would just wear a veil and then some gloves when I was in there, although I was being very brave right here. Um, this is how I got stung. Okay, so like when I was not wearing like a ton of protective equipment, this is how you get stung when you don't have stuff on. So I then turned into somebody who wears a jacket all the time. So if you see me in the bee yard, I'm wearing a jacket like this. And I actually have a full classroom set of jackets. So when you take my course, you don't have to worry about getting stung because we're going to wear a jacket like this and gloves. And as long as you're wearing pants, you're going to be cool. Um, if you Yeah, so if you have the opportunity to take a course with me in 1107, we do a bee biology unit. We go out there and we do a little hive inspection. So we look for evidence of queen. We look for a queen. Sometimes we get lucky, sometimes we don't. Smokers are something that we can employ as well. I don't use a smoker too often, just because like the smell is hard for me. But I know a lot of people who do use smokers to help kind of calm the bees down, and it encourages them to move over. So if you want them to move to a different spot, you can use a smoker. What I do is I'll just like blow on them to get them to move over, or I use a little brush. Okay. The whole job of a bee, like its whole purpose in life, is to make food. So they're making this food to help them to survive over winter, right? When there's not flowers. And there's several like kind of steps or several kinds of food that they make. In a flower, you have two kind of food rewards. At the bottom of the flower, you have nectar. Nectar is their carbohydrate, it's a sugar. They are going to use that liquid sugar and package it into comb, and they build this comb from a little gland of wax on their head, and they build this shape. It's a very like efficient shape, and then they package that with the nectar. They ferment this, and then we'll cover it, and that turns into honey. So right here, you can see this looks a lot like their brood, but it's much smoother. And the longer it's in like this capped form, The darker it is, like the higher the sugar content, and then you could have different taste. The taste can come from the flowers that they are collecting from, or it could come like from how old the honey is, like how long it's been fermenting. And then the last kind of thing that they make to eat is bee bread. So this is pollen. Also, in a flower, you have pollen, and that's going to be their source of protein. So, again, bees are a lot like us, right? They need their carbohydrate, they need their protein. And so they will mix that protein with nectar and make this thing called bee bread. And so this is where another source that they're going to use for food over winter. Um, I talked to you guys earlier about how I give them sugar water, right? Especially in like the months when there's not a lot of flowers around. But I also will give them pollen patties. So this is just kind of, you can buy it or you can make it yourself. It's pollen, and then you mix it up with kind of a like a sugary substance, and it comes out, and it's really weird looking. It looks like sweet potato, and you just kind of sit that on top, and they will eat it. They will eat the whole thing. If it's wrapped in paper, they will eat the paper. Like they really, bees bees be eating. Okay, so um and when you look at like something like this, you see it has this kind of cool orange color. Well, this is really going to depend on the kind of pollen that they are collecting. So in the mission garden, we have a lot of plants that have yellow pollen, so their bee bread is yellow. And the bees will, on their back legs, they actually will have like pollen pants, so you just see like they're packed with pollen and all yellow. It's very cute. Okay. Now, once they have made honey, my philosophy as a beekeeper is to leave them the majority of the honey for them to have over winter, but I do harvest a small amount of the honey. So I have some videos that we're going to look at to see how we harvest. But the first thing is uncapping. So I have this like roller, and we just pop open the honey and then we scrape. So I'll show you guys these two videos next. Okay, so we're going to go here where I'm uncapping this. Is it sharing it? Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm just using this uncapping roller to pierce the wax of the comb so that we can stick it into the centrifuge for honey extraction. That is such a fun sound. Oh my goodness. All right, that looks pretty. Yeah, so we were harvesting on Halloween, and I was dressed like a strawberry. That's why I like got green nails. But this here is where I have my two EPCCB students were helping us with this process, and they are scraping the honey comb hole into these two sieves. So you see, we've got a double sieve, and then it was going into this like container. So the reason we were trying to do this is so that we could catch the wax and then the honey would flow through. This was not the most efficient method. I developed this other method over here. This is what I now use. So I have like a strainer, and then this is a bag that you would use to like filter the clumps out of paint. So I scrape everything into a bucket with this bag. And then I take this bag and I place it on a strainer, and then it falls into my honey bucket. So I'll show you this. Very precariously placed. So that's where it fell in, and you see there was honey all over. But a little peek inside. It's going to be a very bountiful honey harvest. So I actually use like all of the parts that I harvest. I use the wax and I use the honey. Let's go here. Okay. Yeah, we're here. So this is a little bit of I showed you this video. So this goes into my homemade honey bucket that my dad made for me. It has a spigot. And so I just open this and then I fill the jars of honey. And so I had an event in April where I gave little honey jars away and people got to meet the bees. And so you can see I was preparing for that event and I was able to harvest like 90 3.5-ounce jars of honey and then a few of these big guys um, for that event. You can see how. Oh, sorry. Let me move. Yeah, here we go. And this is what I do with the wax. So I will either take the wax from like a comb, like a frame, like you saw we were doing in those videos, or if the bees make extra pieces of wax, I collect them in a little jar like this. And then there's this processing method where you put the wax in a pot with water and you allow it to melt, and then all the impurities are going to come out like this. So this is like bee parts, propolis, things you don't necessarily want in a final wax product. And that will go to the bottom and the wax is on the top. And you do this like 3 times and you get really pretty yellow wax. And I use this wax to make like lip balm so far, but I do want to look into making candles and different things. Okay. So far you've seen like all this cool stuff. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can participate in this work. So you can take a class, right? You can, if you're a biology major, you can take 1107 taught by me or Miss Elizabeth Preza. Both of us do the bee biology and the bacteria stuff. Both of us do that. And then I, in my majors microbiology, general microbiology, we work a little bit more with the different antimicrobial aspects of the hives, or something that is like not part of curriculum. I do run a service learning program called EPCCBs, and if you are a biology major, you can apply. And I usually select between 2 or 3 students per semester to go and work the bees with me. So you saw my 2 students in one of the videos from last year. So what's next for EPCC bees, the bees in general at Mission? I have just submitted this grant like on Monday to build a pollinator habitat. So we are expanding. Um, Anyone who has an interest in pollinators in general, you know that they are so important to our desert, right? They are what keep us having food. They keep the diversity of the plants. We need pollinators. Honeybees are one kind of pollinator, but native pollinators are more important than the honeybee. And so this habitat is going to have several zones. There's something like 9 zones. And if I am awarded this grant, we will implement this in front of the D building, like right across from where the honeybees are. There's going to be a pollinator meadow with tons of flowering plants, a native hedge. This is going to have different kinds of cacti in it. Brush pile. This is to encourage like little birds, right? And then dead wood. This will give us both fungi and also a habitat for birds. And then I've got these cool nesting boxes that I want to buy for both bees and birds. There'll be trail cams so we can take lots of video of the different pollinators that head out. There'll be a pond that collects rainwater with a rain garden flowering plants, a leaf litter zone where when you have leaf litter, this is a good place for certain kinds of native bees to build their nests. And also a night garden with lots of white flowers to encourage moths. to come and visit Mission. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this is what's next for our garden, expanding the work with the bees into native bees and also other pollinators like moths, birds, and butterflies. Even beetles are also a pollinator. So that's hopefully we're going to see a yes to that, and I'll get that answer sometime in the fall. So lots of exciting things going on at Mission when it comes to pollinators. All right, guys, that is it for me. Um, I'm Dr. Sarah Martinez. That's me, the desert honey, right? So if you want more information on how to participate, you can email me here at smart317. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see any comments or questions that you guys might have.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Martinez. Let me go ahead and share next week's event with you. So next week, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to answer this question of if I sell the honey. Right now, I give the honey away. Like your first try is free. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but there are plans for me to sell the honey. That is something that I'm looking into. I just need to get some like permissions from the college and just, yeah, look for that information coming very, very soon. But thank you for that question. And thank you for everyone who attended.
Did anybody else have any questions?
Okay, you can open. Yeah. You can talk.
Dolores, raise your hand.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Sarah. This is Arlene. Just wishing you luck on your application.
Oh, thank you, Arlene.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck, Dr. Martinez.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's a wonderful information. I love it.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate the feedback, the positive feedback.
Thank you, everyone. And anybody else have any questions? Okay, so here we're sharing the rest of the TVE summer schedule. Next week, we will be doing Tejano Mercado and basic needs. Learn about Tejano Mercado and basic needs resources available to support EPCC students. And if you haven't already, Clara just posted the Tejano Passports link so that you can get the Tejano Passport points. And thank you, everyone, for attending.